Hello. Hey, hi everyone. Thanks for your time. During the lunchtime, I see a lot of you, at least 35% capacity. So thank you very much. My name is Girish Manmadkar. I work for VMware by Broadcom. About 18 years in the company. Lucky to be a part of VCF engineering team from the inception for VCF. I am based out of Palo Alto. If you have any questions in the later, feel free to reach out to me. But today's topic is basically VCF delivers a lot of automation when it comes to day one or even day two. What IBM and the providers have done, they have done the automation of that as a VCF as a stack. So that's what we call automate the automation that we deliver from the VCF perspective. Right from securing the hardware, right from day two expansion, right from attaching various third-party product integrations like backup, recovery, ransomware recovery. Those things are required to be done with an additional automation. And that's what IBM Cloud has done it very, very seamlessly. It's all about time to market. Not only getting the infrastructure is a key part of it, but also the additional services around it are very, very important. And that's what Neil is going to talk about. So with that said, 25-minute session, don't talk about it more than me or VCF, because you all know about VCF now. So let us hear from Neil what IBM is doing and how they are doing. Neil, thank you.
Thank you very much, Girish. Thanks, everybody. My name is Neil Taylor. I work for IBM. I actually work as an architect within the IBM Cloud Infrastructure as a Service product management team. And I want to spend the next 23 minutes or so just talking to you about a project we did with Girish's team on how we brought VCF to our virtual private cloud. Now, if you've got any questions as we go through this, please just put your hand up. I need to get a microphone to you just so that everyone can hear you. So please just put your hand up and go. So I'm going to take you through how we sort of approached the project. And what our task was to build a proof of concept, a demonstration, just something on how we could get the project and then give it to our professional developers, product designers, etc., for them to put the polish on it and really make it into a sort of a resilient product that we can sell to customers. So this was our approach. So whenever we're doing any automation, right, there's always like a starting state. Whenever you look at the documentation, there's always like the prerequisites. So what are the prerequisites in place? So we went into the documentation for VCF, and it says, here's the prerequisites. You've got to have all this stuff in place, right? And we thought, okay, so now we need to automate. We know that VCF does the automation. Now we need to wrap the automation into some other automation to get all the prerequisites there and do some bits at the back end that we'll see. So this is how we did it. So we investigated the VCF bring-up process. Now, most of you will probably know what this actually is, but I'll just step through it because we needed to understand it in depth. So as we just saw, we need some infrastructure, right? So that needs to be ready. So we need the hosts, we need the subnets, we need the security groups, everything all in place, ready so that we can install some other components. So then we have to do some planning and preparation. Most of you probably recognize the spreadsheets that you can download, because you need to have a very clear idea of what your subnet IPs are going to be. You don't want any overlapping. How many do I need? How many hosts do I going to need for scaling? Right, and then once you've got that and you've got your host, you can then deploy the VMware Cloud Builder, and that then will do the automation. But before it does that, you need to download and complete a deployment workbook. And then, once you've done all the, populated it with all the information that you've done in the plan and prepare, you can then upload it into the Cloud Builder appliance. And then, the bring-up process begins. All the automation. You can go away now, have a cup of coffee, wait till everything's done, and then it's all sitting there. So we said, okay, we understand that. What do we need to do? So, let's have a look at the process that we adopted. First of all, we needed a web form. We needed to collect information from the customers. So on how many hosts do I want? What sort of host profile? What are the IP addresses that you need? We needed to collect all this information together. So once we had that, right, we then had to have a catalog. Now everything in the IBM Cloud, right, has a catalog item. And this is a bit of a glue. It joins things together for other parts of the process. Right, now we need to do automation. We need to use Terraform. Now Terraform is something that you can use in IBM Cloud in a product we call IBM Schematics. IBM Schematics is an automation tool which knows about Ansible and it knows about Terraform. And if you've got some code, you can run it in the IBM Schematics package, right? And it'll do whatever the Terraform or Ansible tells you to do. So we've got some code, we've stuck it in GitHub, right? And then we send all that information from the catalog into the schematics. Off it goes and does its stuff. Schematic runs the Terraform code, and at the end, we get all the infrastructure built, we get the Cloud Builder deployed, Cloud Builder does its stuff, we do some bits at the end that we'll see just to tidy things up and give you access, and then you've got your VCF platform, exactly how you wanted it. Now, we've done this approach, right, with a service provider, but all these parts are actually available to you, right, as a customer or as a business partner to do your own things within the catalog, right? So you wouldn't have a pretty form because that is a part of the service provider, but you could create your own forms and then use IBM Schematics. You can have your own catalog item. That catalog item could just be available to you and your customers, or if you're a business partner, you can make it available to the other IBM customers. All right, so there's some takeaways here that if you're going to do this, you're going to use the same approach, right, in your own projects. Right, so let's go back to see about what's the infrastructure, what's the bits that we're automating. Well, the first thing we have to do is you have an IBM Cloud account, and that's what you've logged into to see the order form. So we know that, you've got a cloud account. But within that cloud account, we've got to create a virtual private cloud. Now that's just a secure area within our cloud that then we can provision all the resources. And all those resources belong to you, and you have complete access to them. So we provision a virtual private cloud, and then we provision a whole number of subnets. So we've got subnets here for the hosts, we've got management, vMotion, etc., all the subnets that the VCF architecture dictates that we need to have. And you can see that on one of the subnets, the management subnet, we've provisioned something called a public gateway. Now that public gateway, all it is really is a natting, so it's an external NAT. So what we're doing is allowing anything that we provision on that management subnet access out onto the internet. And we need that for doing updates, etc. Right? It doesn't allow any inbound because the public gateway only allows external access. Right? You can also see that we've provisioned a link into from our virtual private cloud into our cloud services, because we need some cloud services to provide additional services that we don't have within the VCF environment. So the first one of those, I know the writing's probably a little bit small at the bottom, is we need an NTP source. Well, IBM Cloud has an NTP source that you can use, right? It's on there, available on the network, so we give you the IP address for that. Then we also need some DNS entries, because part of the prerequisites is you've got to have your host provisioned, they've got to have names, they've got to have IPs, they've got to have A records, they've got to have PTR records. So we automate all that. And then we've got logging and monitoring. So, of course, we want to understand what's going on. So we configure a logging and monitoring instance that we can send all the logs to. So once we have that, we're then starting to have the necessary infrastructure ready for us to move on to the next phase. The next phase is the Terraform is then deploying, and we've just called it a Bastion host. I think in retrospect we could have probably come up with a better name. We couldn't use Cloud Builder because the VMware has a Cloud Builder. But effectively that's what it's doing. It's going to run some code, so it's been stood up by Terraform, right? It's going to get some code that's going to get some sucked down from the GitHub repository, right? And then from there, it's going to connect onto our host and do everything at a host-based level. So all the Terraform and everything was doing stuff at a cloud level, right? And there's another layer of automation that's going to run inside that Bastion host instance. Once that's available to us, we then provision the bare metal servers, and that can be a number of bare metal servers depending on how many that you've selected. so you can scale this as necessary to your requirements. So the bare metal servers get provisioned, and in our VPC environment, that's like extremely quickly. So within like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, your servers will be up, ready. I have ESXi installed, ready for you to do the next step. The next step is that we then use the automation on the Bastion host to install the cloud builder onto one of the ESXi hosts, and then we pass up to it all the information that we collected. So remember everything that you'd normally do in the XLS form, right? What we've done is we've converted that to JSON, we use the API, push that up, and then tell the cloud builder, right, go away and build the cloud. So once that's available, right, it does its normal stuff, right? It just builds away, and it builds out, puts on the SDC manager, vCenter, NSX, deploys all the edges. We even put like an overlay on there, AVN networks, ready to do all the other aspects of the automation. And then finally, when the cloud builder has finished its job, right, we then do some like tidying up. So we allow like connectivity outbound. We put NAT rules in there to enable that, and then we also configure some VPC routes so that our VPC then knows about the networks that are inside on the NSX overlay segments. So that if you've got anything else deployed, for example, you might have some other bare metal servers in your accounts which are running, you know, big databases, etc. So they're not virtualized, they're just using those. Well, they can now route to all the virtual machines and things on your overlay, right, because all the routes have been propagated into the routing tables. Right, so one of the other things we needed to look at was you have to put everything in those forms when you're doing this manually. And sometimes, even though there's like error checking and stuff in the XLS spreadsheets, we wanted to make sure that the customer put the limited amount of information in, so it was like a quick way of doing things, right? But also that, that they couldn't put like false information in, so lots of error checking. So I'm just going to give you an example of that, about how we do the IP addressing, because I think that's like a good source. So we keep this as clean as we can, right? And all we're doing is asking for the client to put in 2 IP CIDRs, right? One for we're going to use in the zone for a zone prefix, and that will then create all the network IP ranges for the vMotion, for the host, for management, etc. And the customer doesn't have to divide that down. We'll divide that down on the customer's behalf, right? And then also we need a separate prefix for the T0s, for the uplinks, right? So the customer just does that. Right, and then what we do is inside our code we create a complex variable, and hopefully you'll be able to see that's not too small, and you can actually see like within the variable we've got some sub-variables around subnets, right? So we're saying that here are the subnets that we want that prefix to be divided down into: host, management, vMotion, etc. And then here are the edges, right? And then when we actually come to execute that code, all that will be done for us. And at the end of that, what the customer will see is they'll see a list of the networks with appropriate network names, and then the IP range that the automation's done for that. And if we just have then a quick look, okay? Those of you that know Terraform, you'll see this is how you create a resource, a subnet within IBM Cloud. And you can see that because there's a number of these subnets, we're just using a for each statement to go through each one of those through that complex variable. So you can see we've got some for statements under there, which is then selecting the subnet name, what zone we need to put it in, but most importantly, this connection, this one, the IP4 CIDR block, right? So that's the bit that's actually then converting that into that IPsec CIDR, and then we use it within the actual statement to create the subnet, and then we do that 6 times. And then we do it another 2 times for the T0, and we have all our subnets built. And that's what we see again at the end on the portal. Right, so what I'm going to do now is we've talked about the whole process of what we did. Hopefully that'll give you a good idea. But now we're going to show you what the sort of customer sees, and hopefully piece all those bits together. Right, so hopefully a lot of you will recognize this is the IBM Cloud dashboard. I've just logged in, given my credentials. And what I would need to do is to click on the menu bar here, go down to VMware, and then go down to resources. And here you can see our other offerings that we have, but this talk is about VCF VPC. So I'll click on that. And then it'll take me to the resources page. And you'll see that we already have an instance deployed. And we'll come back to that in a minute because I want to show you the Create New button. So this is what a customer would do if they wanted to create one. And this is that web form on the first process. So I press the Create New. Right, and this is like the web form. This is the one that we spent a lot of time, our designers spent a lot of time to try and minimize the amount of areas where customers needed to put information. And actually, we filled it with defaults that will work straight out of the box. So in fact, I don't need, if I'm happy to accept all the defaults, all I need to do is click that button and then, tick that box and click that button, and off it goes. But say if I wanted to go away and look through and make those changes, then that's the steps that we'll look through now. So the first one it looks through is how do I basically want to pay for this? Am I happy to have this on demand and pay for it on an hourly basis? Some customers do. And some customers know that they're going to have this for a long period of time, and therefore they want a little bit of discount. So what will happen there, you can select 1 year or 3 year, which means that I'll get some discounts for that period. So then we scroll down. You can see that the current version of VCF that we're deploying is 5.11. And then you'll see that we have the architectures. Now, you probably know that within VCF there are two different architectures. So there is the consolidated, right, and the standard. And now to help customers to understand what that means, what we've done is we've just created a little box here, right, that just pops out a window just to remind customers what that may be. So this is what the consolidated architecture looks like. And you can see that what we mean by consolidated is that everything is in one domain, one cluster. So all the components are there, right, and including the compute resource pool. So that's where your workloads would go. Right, if we wanted a standard architecture, the picture for that looks similar, but it's a little bit different. Because what we're deploying now are two clusters, right? One cluster for all the management domain components, and then one cluster here for all your workloads. Okay. Now that's a minimum of 4 hosts, right? And this is a minimum of 3 hosts, and that can be scaled up as needed to run your workloads. So as I scroll down, you can see I can change the names of things. I can do it in different locations, whether that's in America or EMEA or AP. At the moment, we've got the 2 host profiles. Next year, this is going to change into 5, so that we've got a larger selection of physical hosts and resources to be able to choose from. And if I want to change the number of the hosts and even the naming of those hosts, I can do all that here. We've just put defaults in to make it easier, but you can customize that as much as possible. Here we can change the AVN networks. So this is for the deployment of ARIA. So that is all built with those IP addresses. And then these public floating IPs, these would be, you can order them, right, and they'll be used for any of the NAT rules that you want to use within your T0s. So that will provide you with external public-facing IP addresses, which then you can use, get NATed, and then go actually to your virtual machines. As we scroll down, you can see that if we're already adding DNS records, if you want to add in additional DNS records for other things, you can put them in there, and the automation will do that for you as well. If you want to deploy additional servers, say you want a Windows jump server, or I think I've just missed that there's a backup server there that you can have, then all that can be done at the same time. So once I'm happy with that form, I'd click the buttons, off it would go and be provisioned. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go to the catalog just to show you what that looks like. So I said there was always a catalog item. You can see our full range of catalog stuff there. I think hundreds of different products that are there. If I just type in VCF, then you can see that we have, this is our VCF automation catalog. Now, normally a customer doesn't need to do this because it's hidden from them, right, using the web portal. But at the back end, as I said, there's always a catalog item, right? And then it just gives you some information. There's even a README file here if you wanted to know a bit more. Just scroll through that. A bit more about how the automation works if you're really interested, all the different variables, etc. All right. Well, what I want to do is just take you through the GitHub. Right. So the other component was we need all that Terraform somewhere. That's all maintained in GitHub. Just giving you a view of this. Customers won't see this; they don't have access to it, but we can just show you this. You can see all the various bits of code that's in here that deploy everything. You can see the variables. Whole big list of variables, and if we scroll down to the nets, you'd be able to see that bit of code that we showed you earlier. So all that's there. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go back to previous pages. And hopefully I've got the right page. No, back one more. So just going back to where I said that we already had an instance deployed, and if I click on this, so all the automation has worked, customer comes back, it's ready to be looked at. You can see we've got some basic information here about the infrastructure. You can click on this and you can see all the hosts. You can see all the passwords for the host, so you can get access to them. But interestingly, there is this add host button. So now this is like a day-2 operation. I built out my environment. It was enough for the initial capacity, right? Now I've got more workloads. I need to add more hosts. What I need to do is come back to here, add my host, right? Tick the button again, click that, and the automation will then be deployed to create that host, then bring it back into the cluster. Then you've got your additional capacity that you might need. Right, so let's just write that down. Now, if I go to the access information, right, this is where I need access now. How do I get to vCenter? How do I get to the Lifecycle Manager, SDDC Manager? How do I get to NSX Manager? What are my passwords? What are the IP addresses? All that stuff. That's where all this is displayed. So you can see that you get, full root access to everything. Once it's in this position, you're ready to go. You can access it. You can start deploying your workload. You can upgrade it. You can add it. Everything you need. Right, that's me coming to an end. If anybody's got any questions, please put their hand up. Hopefully you've all learned a little bit about how we do some projects on IBM Cloud, how we automated the VMware automation, and hopefully you can maybe use some of this if you're an IBM Cloud customer to develop some of your own automation and use some of the same techniques and some of the processes that we've used. But thank you for coming.